Okay, so now let's see what happens to the absorption when you have a light trapping, when you have texturing. So usually this light trapping scheme is most beneficial when your cell thickness is low and when you have a thin cell. So considering the case of these red photons which are incident in this wavelength region, so if I have a thick cell, I'll see that I'll be able to absorb a large fraction of them. But as I decrease the thickness of my cell, I'll be absorbing less and less of them. Right? So instead, if I put texturing on the cell, so first of all, if you have cell without any texturing, so your cell efficiency, it behaves as a function of thickness like this. So if you have a thin cell, you don't absorb a lot of the light, so you have a low efficiency. Versus also if you have a very thick cell, then even though you absorb a lot of the light, you're not able to collect those photons because a lot of them will recombine by the time you extract them out. So again, efficiency for a very thick cell also decreases. So there's a optimum point somewhere in the between at which you get maximum efficiency. Now what happens if you do texturing? So I have this same thickness of the cell, so 2 micron over here without texturing, and I have this 2 micron with texturing. So I see immediately for the red photons, right, the photons which are in this wavelength, I see that if I had no texturing, their absorption was very low. They were getting absorbed, only 20% of them were getting absorbed. But now if I have texturing, I have enhanced the path length quite a bit. So now these red photons, they get enough bounces or they get enough path length to get absorbed. And you see that most of this effect is coming for these high wavelength photons or these low energy photons. If I compare for the case of these blue photons or these low energy photons, if I use or don't use light trapping, it does not affect them much because these are going to get absorbed in the first few 100 nanometers anyway, because their absorption coefficient is higher, their absorption length is lower. So most of the enhancement that I see due to light trapping, it occurs in this red wavelength or in this low energy photon range. Okay, so this is what this light trapping scheme helps me achieve. So it gives me an overall boost in my efficiency. And also the other thing I can achieve is that I can achieve that efficiency now with a much thinner cell. Right? So if I put texturing, I enhance this path length. So I don't need as thick of a cell. So first of all, I'm getting higher efficiency, and I'm consuming a much less amount of silicon. So this is the main selling point of light trapping. Any more questions on that? So what I want to do now is to give a few minutes to go over the problem set and see if you guys have any questions, and or I can run through at least what I see are some of the good important points you should consider while answering it. So how many people did take a look before coming to? Okay, Hin and Sam are the only two people. So anyway, this discussion is going to still help you if you go back and attempt it now. So the problem set is due on April 30th. The feedback I got from a few of you was that the first problem sets was a little long. It was too much of work. Was that the general feedback? Or? So what we've tried to do is try to at least decrease the length a little bit in terms of the second problem sets. And it has around 12 multiple choice questions. To get answers for that, the best place would be to look at the videos on the class website, and then there are these 4 short questions, and then the long question this time is based on this PC1D, which is a simulator which is most commonly used for simulating these crystalline silicon based solar cells. it asks you to simulate a few things, and it asks you to simulate the effect of back surface field, surface passivation, doping optimization. So if you want to study the concepts for that, I have uploaded some videos yesterday, and I'll upload some more today, which explains just how those concepts work, like back surface field versus the effect of surface recombination velocity. So you can download it from it's available for free, and you can download it, and the interface looks something like this. So you can input a lot of things. You can put text string if you want. You can change the band gap. You can change the doping of the p-type. You can change the surface recombination velocity using these buttons over here. You can change the dopant profile, and the problem asks you to essentially analyze the patterns you are seeing when you change a lot of these things. And it's a good fun exercise to really understand how the solar cell works, and hope that's our aim with this problem. But do download it, play with it, and it's a pretty easy thing to use. It doesn't have too much of a learning curve. Then the short questions, there are 4 of them. The first one is based on packing density. So we based this question upon the discussion we had in the last class, that whether you have circular cells, or you have these octahedrons, or you have these square cells which you get if you have a multicrystalline design. How do these compare in terms of what your panel can deliver? So you'll see that. So you'll work this out, and you'll see for yourself that which is a better design. And there's a good reference to look it up as well, given over here. Any questions that you guys had in particular on this? Yeah. You assume the efficiency to be the same, but the area is different now. Right? So you have, if you take the circular wafer, cut it, you'll get a lesser area of these. But overall, a larger percentage of your panel would be occupied as you go from here to here to here with solar cell. So what the problem asks for is it gives you a fixed panel size, and then asks you, what is the current you can get with these different schemes. Yes.
So this says packing density is defined as the ratio between the packed region and the unused region.
Yeah.
I assume you mean to have an area, the total area, not the unused area. Otherwise, for the square.
Sorry?
In a limit where there's no unused region?
Oh, by the total area, yeah. That's right. So maybe we can correct.
There's also somewhere else in there that says, parentheses, it says insert figure later.
Yeah, we have.
I changed it.
Okay.
I changed it.
Okay. So the second short question is, it asks this question that basically, can your VOC, can it be greater than the band gap? So, if I have a semiconductor, and what if I have 2 metals, one with a work function over here, one with a work function over here, and I put them in contact to the semiconductor, can my open circuit voltage be greater than the band gap? Right? So, if I could, that would be a good thing. Maybe I can, beat Shockley coil there, or do something nice. But a good starting point for that is to think of what would happen if you in fact place a contact over here, because there are a lot of states available inside the conduction band, and similarly inside the valence band, that would bend your band in such a way that it probably won't allow that to happen. And a good starting point if you have some background in device physics, you will be able to do it quickly. But if not, a good starting point is chapter 3 in this solar cell device physics book. That is one of the prescribed books for you. And this is a good chapter to read. It generally describes what are the different ways you can get photovoltaic action, and this question is picked up from there as well. So I recommend looking over here if you are having trouble understanding. Okay. And then the third question, for which you're saying the figure was missing, is basically it's concerned with this band lineups of different semiconductors for making a solar cell. And the main idea is that, let's say you have this PN semiconductor. I mean, you have this PN junction, right? This P plus N junction. So what should be the band lineup of this P junction versus this N material, right? So I usually have the same band diagram. I mean, I usually use the same material, and that gives me a band lineup something like this. But what if I use a material which has a slightly higher band gap, right? So what if I use a band lineup which uses a material which has a larger band gap for this P plus material and a smaller band gap for this N material? And then how should they be lined up? Should they be lined up, the band should be lined up like this, or where this material has higher band gap? Or should the bands be lined up like this, where these two materials have a different band gap? So this is a question that it's, you should, this is the point you should look up over here. How these different, like for example over here, this aluminum gallium arsenide, it has a band gap which is greater than gallium arsenide. But how should it line up with respect to this? And does it give any improvement? How does it improve your cell? And these things are what is called as usually the window emitter. It's called window emitter material. And so let's discuss exactly. What do you think? What would happen if this material has larger band gap as compared to my base? Let me erase this over here. So I have, let's say, this kind of lineup where my P plus material is like this and my N material is like this. So when I line up and form a junction, it would look something like this. So is this a better cell? And what's better in this cell? Okay, so light is shining. Ben wants to know which direction the light is shining from. So the light is shining from here. Yes, so I mean, if the band gap of this P plus material is higher, it's going to absorb less of this light, right?
Are you assuming that the light makes it into the region?
Sure, it will, right? I'm placing a higher band gap material on the top. So you're right that less of this light will now get absorbed in the P plus region, right? So a lot less electrons and holes pair would be generated over here. But is that a good thing or is that a bad thing? It's a good thing, right? Do people agree that that's a good thing? Is generating less electrons in this P plus region, is that a good thing or is that a bad thing? If I'm reducing the generation over here, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Voice is very low. Sorry? It's good, right? Because we discussed that generating electrons over here, first of all, you don't collect them with a high efficiency. And the other thing, so I mean, if you are generating a lot of your electrons over here, they're not collected at a very high efficiency anyway. So why not make this P plus layer in such a way that it allows a lot of these photons to go through and get generated in the depletion region, which is mostly situated right over here anyway. So this is what I'm trying to achieve when I'm making this emitter of a higher band gap, right? Or I'm making like a window emitter where it lets light in, and the name for this is also window emitter, where it lets light in and generate that in this depletion region. So this is one good thing about it. Is there any other good thing? Okay, so Yisheng is saying the right thing. He's saying that it reduces recombination. Can you explain, just for benefit of others, explain why? Mm-hmm. So you're right that it's inversely proportional to the band gap. So this material by default has less recombination. But there's something else which is also helping in reducing the recombination here. So I'm trying to collect holes over here on this contact, right? And I'll collect my electrons on this other contact at the back. Right? So usually what can happen if these holes are transporting through this P plus layer, they can essentially recombine with the electrons which are generated over here. Essentially they can get recombined in this region. And what Yisheng is saying that if I have a higher band gap material, that would happen less, right? The other thing that it's possibly also helping over here is usually the electrons which are generated over here, sometimes they can wander over to the contact and get recombined as well. But because of this offset which is present in the band over here, that prevents these electrons from going into that region as well. So that's another advantage. If you do capture it, that's another good thing. So these are so this question, it asks you to basically look at these different material systems that you have been given and look at which will give you this kind of a scheme, and you can explain why this is better. Yeah.
What is the P plus signified as? Is that a larger band gap?
No. So P plus or P minus, these are just doping levels. So P plus means high doping. P plus plus means even higher doping. So for example, this would corresponding to, let's say, 10 to power 20 per centimeter cube. P plus would be something like 10 to power 19. P could be something like 10 to power 16. P minus would be 10 to power 14. So just the analogy I get the last time was, think of it just like on your grades. The higher your doping is, the higher that symbol is. So if you get higher and higher doping, you get more plus and plus. If you get lower and lower doping, you get more minus and minus. Okay. Any more questions on the process? So hopefully this is a little more. This is a little less in length as compared to the first one. I do recommend get started on it soon, and if you have questions, then I have office hours. Do bug us at office hours after the class today, and Raisul has it on Tuesday and Monday and Thursday as well. Okay. Alright, that's all for today. So I want to again put a plug in for a guest talk on Wednesday. It's from Pawan, who's a VP at Selexa, and he's generally a pretty knowledgeable guy in solar, and it would be interesting to come and ask him questions. Right? Thank you guys.